En mörk uendelig
Hello, and welcome to Views from the World Tree, the podcast where we talk about almost anything and everything, especially today as we go completely off the rails and have our first ever Potpourri podcast. Now, on with the show.
under en himmellag.
Sorry, that was probably lame. It sounded way better in my head.
I thought it was good.
Okay. Today, because we're doing kind of a potpourri, anything goes show, we're not going to have a main topic, but we wanted to keep the method of the show as close to what is working, at least working for now. So I'll start off with our personal news, and really only two things happened because I have to be honest. We recorded last week's show just 2 days ago because of the upcoming holiday and whatnot. So not a lot has had a chance to move forward. But I got my COVID test results. I am negative, which means I'm allowed to travel. And I finally broke down and started hanging Christmas lights. That's about it. I stayed, I tried not to for as long as I could, and I just had to put them up.
Well, you almost made it. My rule has always been Thanksgiving, so not quite as much of a bandwagoner as some people. So good job.
Well, the funny thing is, last year at the height of the pandemic, my wife and I, she put up outside Christmas lights, I think November 1st. And I don't know. I had such a big problem with it. And this year we compromised, and I said, okay, you can do whatever you want on the inside of the house, but I'm not going to put any Christmas lights on the outside until after Thanksgiving. And I was expecting her to put up one or two things. And then yesterday, we put up the tree. We put lights on the tree. We put up garland above our fireplace. We actually kind of decorated a lot of the house. So I guess it could be worse, but we're still within the no Christmas outside of the house yet.
Well, there you go. So for my personal news, like you said, it hasn't been very long. I did have interesting experience. So Saturday morning, a stray dog showed up on my front porch. So somebody had in our neighborhood on the Next Door app, which is like social media for neighbors, if you're not familiar. They had posted that
so toxic. Anyway,
it can be for sure. But somebody had posted on there that they were out walking their dog, and this stray had come up, and they're like, "Hey, does this belong to anybody?" Posted a picture. And so when it set off the security camera on my front porch, I recognized it. I was like, "Hey, it's that little dog." So I went out to see, if it was okay. It was looking pretty cold and wet. It was, I think we were in the low 30s at the time yesterday morning. So I brought him in, gave him some food and water. He was a little 12-pound. We think he was a Pomsky, which is a Pomeranian Husky mix. He looked like a Husky. He just was tiny. He was smaller than my 2.5-month-old puppy. So anyway, we posted on some social media groups, and we took him to have a vet check for a microchip, which he did not have. So if you have pets, please get them microchipped. Luckily, we were able to find the owners. They live about 2 miles down the highway. So he had traveled pretty far for a little dude. But we ended up getting him reunited, and his name was Thor, which was kind of funny because he's just tiny. But anyway, I'll try and remember to throw a picture up in the show notes. So
that is funny. I love it when people name their dogs things that are not what their dogs would look like.
Yeah, like a Great Dane named Tiny or something.
Like a little chihuahua named Bruiser
Yeah.
or a toy poodle.
Yep.
Well, I'm glad you were able to find the owner and reunite Thor with his family.
Yes, I see. Good news, everyone!
I guess current events. So I actually have a weird story about this. Last night I was having a hard time sleeping and just having dream after dream after dream after dream. And one of the dreams that I remembered was I was discussing with one of my friends the Manchester United score, and like, because if you watch the English Premiership, you will know that Manchester United is not doing very well this year.
It's been a rough one.
Yeah, but he was kind of ripping on the team, and I said, I don't know, it's probably just their coach. I like Solskjaer, but I'm not entirely sure he's the right fit for the team. And it's just weird that I was having this dream kind of saying, I don't know that Ole Solskjaer is like the right fit for manager of Manchester United. And I woke up going, that is such a weird dream to be discussing soccer or football, depending on where you are in the world, with a buddy, with an unfaced buddy in a dream. And so I pulled up my phone and kind of started to read to go back to bed. And I opened up the news app, and the first thing in the news app was Ole Solskjaer resigns as Man United head coach. Like 20 minutes. So probably right when I was having that dream, he retired. So I don't know what that means. Maybe I have my feet in the spiritual, like primordial ooze and I'm able to communicate with the spirits, or maybe it's just a weird coincidence. But either way, I thought that was really weird and whatnot. So current event and kind of a goofy story.
Well, you could just go ahead and have a dream about the winning numbers of the Idaho Powerball and just let me know. That'd be great.
I'll see if I can divine that.
So current events for me, this is kind of circling back to a topic that Steve brought up for his current event a few episodes ago. So John Deere employees have been on strike for a while, and there was an article that I read today that said they have finally reached an agreement, and said agreement was an immediate 10% raise across the board, which is great. $8,500 bonus plus guaranteed 5% raises in 2023 and 2025 for cost of living. So that was pretty big results, I think, well deserved as well. So
yeah, for sure. Well, I'm glad the union stuck out, and I'm glad that these no workers are at least getting something, some sort of compensation.
yeah, it might be just enough to keep up with inflation over the last 2 years.
Oh, right.
But
I actually read an article the other day that was asking, if you don't get a 6% raise this year, are you technically getting a wage reduction because of how bad inflation has been?
probably.
And that's kind of a scary way to look at it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess there goes our news, personal and current events, the two things that we try to hit on every show. So we'll jump into the potpourri, the meat and potatoes potpourri, which is an unscripted, unshow noted bunch of dead air that you're going to put up with. No,
Yeah,
I'm kidding.
I don't have the patience to cut out, any dead air that's more than like half a second. So
There you go.
although, quick plug for the podcast app that I use, which is not a sponsor, but maybe they should be, called Overcast. It has an audio setting that will automatically boost the vocal in the track, and also cut out dead air. So I know a lot of people listen to podcasts at like 1.5 speed or 2x speed, and I like the way that Overcast does it because they do it by removing the silences, and then if that's not enough to reach the speed that you want it, then it speeds up the audio. So really cuts down on how much time it takes to catch up on my podcasts every week.
Oh, that's really cool. I know I listen at 1.25 to 1.5 times speed myself, just because a lot of the podcasts that I listen to are 3-4 hours long, and it's just a long time to dedicate to a show.
Yeah, I'm usually a 2 or a 2.5xer myself. It's probably my ADD, but yeah. Check out Overcast. And Overcast, if you're listening, hit us up for a sponsorship.
There you go. Good words. Not necessarily a sponsorship, but I know Adam well enough to know that he won't promote something that he does not truly believe in. So I'll have to check it out. So, as far as this episode, I know a couple weeks ago you were saying that you were getting back into World of Warcraft, and I mean, we could do a whole thing on the troubles that Blizzard is on, but how's it like? What's it like in there? I let my subscription lapse and haven't touched the game.
It's better than it was at the beginning of Shadowlands, which is the most recent expansion. There was a patch that came out that improved the quality of life for a lot of game systems and removed some of the grind, made it easier to progress, especially if you have alternate characters or if, like me, you took a break for a while. There's some catch-up mechanics. Also, the other thing that I've been doing is WoW Classic is doing a Season of Mastery, which is basically a kind of a reset where everybody starts over with brand new characters on brand new servers. And it's kind of a progression race similar to what Diablo does. And they have different phases. So it has like faster leveling and a couple other quality of life improvements. And so that's been fun to get back in there and re-level a character and relive some of the nostalgia of Classic, while also realizing that sometimes our nostalgia is just rose-colored glasses.
Oh, for sure. I jumped into Classic when it first came out, and then when the Burning Crusade came out, and I remember kind of playing through it, but playing through it again, I realized how much quality of life they've added to the game.
It's true. And the classes that I played in Classic the first time around, which was almost 20 years ago now, 17 years ago. So I played a hunter and then a warlock, and they've had a lot of changes since then. You don't have to worry about buying arrows anymore for your hunter and making sure that you have the right level of arrows that do enough damage. And as a warlock now, you don't have to worry about farming soul shards to be able to summon your demons. So it's a very different game, but it's kind of fun.
The one thing that I did enjoy about the Classic reboot, I have to admit, is leveling a warrior. I know, well, for our listeners who are sitting here, hopefully, listening to us geek out a little bit, warriors are probably the least liked unless you're a tank. If you're a DPS warrior, nobody really wants to do anything with you. Because you were really squishy for somebody that's supposed to be big and brawny and beefy. But I remember once I hit a certain level and wanted to go do some of the old contested zones and get into some player versus player combat, my weapon kept getting taken from me, and I completely forgot that you needed to find an enchanter to get the weapon chain to make sure your weapon stays on you, and also it's a good idea to level up your unarmed combat.
Mm-hmm.
And I forgot how cool it was to be able to kind of, no matter what no matter what class you played, do almost anything, almost like how the Elder Scrolls is trying to do.
Yeah, it was a different game back in Classic. I think players that played, um, 15, 20 years ago have had a fun time getting back in there and seeing it. But some of the younger players that started more recently that jumped in to try it were kind of like, okay, I don't see what the fuss is. Like it's not as fun, but
Well,
kind of had to be there, I guess.
I don't know. Like you, I played it for this nostalgia. Seeing
Yeah.
if you if you've played the game before Cataclysm, the game looked relatively different to how it plays now. And just going back to some of the zones that are not flooded, some of the zones that are intact and whatnot, it's kind of a fun to see where it came from.
Yeah, agreed. So, and I don't want to dwell on it too much. The one other thing I forgot to mention about the Season of Mastery that I've been trying is there's an official hardcore mode now, which is something that players have kind of done on their own by, making a unwritten promise that, oh, if I die, then I'll delete the character and start over. But now they've done it to where you can talk to an NPC at the beginning of the game and get a special buff called the Soul of Iron. And then if you die, that gets removed. So the game doesn't enforce like permadeath or anything, but if you start a character on hardcore mode and then lose the debuff or lose the buff, then I don't know. It's kind of a fun way to do hardcore mode, but not lose all of your hard work, just lose the status, I guess.
Did you ever try any of the WoW challenges from the website? Or have you ever heard of that?
I tried the one where you just have to stay in your base class and not pick a specialization. I forget what that was called. But that was the only thing that I tried up until now.
I'm going to plug a website for anybody that does still play World of Warcraft. There's a website called WoW Challenges, and they have a bunch of different things like Iron Man Challenge, Green Iron Man Challenge, whatnot. But their most famous challenge, and I think last time I checked, there was somewhere over 600, 700 people that have actually completed the challenge. It's to go from level 1 to max level without equipping anything more powerful than a white item. So like non-magical and all of that. And as soon as you die, your character's death is logged on the website, and you no longer get on the any higher on the leaderboards, which is kind of a fun way to do it. That's one of the things that kept me in the game as long as I did, because I don't know, after Mist of Pandaria, which was 4 expansions ago now,
Something like that, yeah.
I could never really, I couldn't get into it again. So it's probably a good thing that I let my subscription pass, even though I still do have a little bit of passion for this game. But if you are interested, I'll say it's wowchallenges.com. I think you can put that into your search engine and come up with probably what the site is.
Yeah, wowchallenges.com is what comes up for me.
Okay.
So anyway, I probably don't want to bore people by dwelling on this topic for too long. So
It's a conversation. It's a potpourri. Anything goes. But I guess I can talk a little bit about how I've been passing the time. I reinstalled Cyberpunk 2077 onto my Xbox and have been playing the broken game. I don't know if you tried it. I know you at least logged on. I don't know if you played very far into it.
I got about an hour into it and kind of lost interest. The bugs definitely helped
Yeah.
my interest wane. But how is it now? Is it has it been fixed at all, or is it still in the same state it was?
It's not in the same state. It's got quite a bit of patches that they're pushing through. It no longer rains, and because it no longer rains, it no longer lifts cars up off the street and drops them on you. The day-night cycle is now perma-day.
Oh, weird. I don't know if I love that, but
Well, it's weird because the lights will dim down on the street level, but if you actually make your character look up at the sky, it's still blue skies and clouds up there. So it's like a weird... It's dark and gives the impression of night, but it's not actually night because I guess doing the day-night cycle was breaking something in their code.
Yeah, sounds like they I don't know. Obviously they know what they're doing. Like they've made a lot of really great games before, but I don't really know what happened with this one.
My personal theory, scope of the project was just too big. It's a bigger map than Witcher 3. There's a lot more characters that they wanted in it. They wanted the city to feel alive, and so there's a lot more characters. Like non-playable characters that are just passing by. And they wanted to make it so there was no loading zone, so they were going to do a progressive loading. So as you're coming into the next zone, it would be loading the data in the background. So once you got there, it was there. Kind of like
okay.
2 weeks ago when we were talking about if we live in a simulation, like it would render things as you were getting within contact range type of thing. But
Yeah.
they didn't take into account that people like to drive in video games, and so rendering times needs to be a lot faster. And the technology just isn't there for their dream yet, so they had to dumb it down to Grand Theft Auto levels, and even then they're not Rockstar, so they are failing at that.
Yeah, it's too bad. I feel kind of bad for them too, because it was a really ambitious project and it kind of got overhyped, and I think it got away from them a little bit. Like it was ambitious to begin with, and then I think it ended up being a lot more popular than they anticipated. Because I know a lot of people pre-ordered it, and a lot of people that pre-ordered it, this was the first game that they pre-ordered, and so they're not familiar with what it's like to play a big game on day one and experience bugs. And so then there was a lot of call for refunds, and so anyway, kind of a little bit of a mess, but I think they did, as far as the industry as a whole, they pioneered some things that were a little bit new. So hopefully they'll be able to build on that in the future.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the gameplay itself goes and the story, there is nothing wrong with the story and nothing wrong with the gameplay. I'm really enjoying it. It's kind of like playing Fallout or a Bethesda style game in more of a futuristic modern city rather than a nuclear wasteland.
Yeah, I'll have to jump back in and try it. A lot of people are maybe gonna hate me for this. I apologize if so. I was lucky enough to get an Xbox Series X, so the mini fridge looking one, and right now, so I've played through Assassin's Creed Valhalla on it, and other than that, it, my wife uses it for Stardew Valley, so it, which we bought it, we can afford it. It's getting used. It's not getting used to the extent of its abilities, but side note, if you ever have the chance to play Stardew Valley on an 80-inch OLED flat screen, you should try it. You can literally see more of the map than is your farm at one time. But anyway,
for somebody that doesn't trust companies with personal information, you sure do like technology.
it's true. I do. It's a weird dichotomy.
There's nothing wrong with it. I just think it's funny.
I love my tech and I love my games, but at the same time, I kind of want to have my tech and my games in a cabin that's not got anyone for 100 acres in any direction.
You go. You can always turn off the internet if you don't want to be bothered by people.
True. Yep. So I guess continuing our topic that kind of came out on its own, I've also been passing the time by playing some Microsoft Flight Sim, which I guess that is the new one.
Okay.
That is a game that can use the Series X hardware. It's been a lot of fun. So I don't know if this was a feature in all the other versions. This is the first time I've played it, but it has real-time weather and day-night cycle. And if you play in the free play mode, you can take off from like any airport in the world. So I can like take off from one of the local airports by my house, and I can fly over. I can see my house. I can see, and it's the time of day and the weather in the game matches what's actually outside. So it's been kind of fun and relaxing to just go float through the air and see the scenery.
That's fun. I remember when the first game, or when Microsoft Simulator X came out. I haven't played the new one yet. So this one was, like 15 years ago when this one came out. But they had that real world weather and some of the more famous landmarks. The cities weren't as fleshed out as they are now from what I've seen on YouTube or whatnot. But I made the choice that growing up there was an airport like right maybe half a mile from my childhood home. And so I took off from that airport, and my goal was to fly around the world in a Cessna. So like I planned it out, and I would go a certain amount of distance, like hit the maximum of its range, and plan out my airport that I wanted to land in, land there, refuel. And over about a month and a half, I made it from Colorado up into Newfoundland, Canada, hopped over to Greenland, and then was on my way down to Iceland when the real weather, there was a storm up there, and I actually crashed my Cessna into the ocean. But
oh no.
It was a really fun challenge, and a lot of time. And in all honesty, it was a lot of autopilot. My brother-in-law is a pilot, and kind of showed me how to plug in transponders and where to find on the internet how to plug in your transponders so I could get up to altitude. And on my radio console, I could say, fly to this one. As soon as that one hits, I could switch it to frequency 2, which would be the next one, and then plug in on frequency 1, the one that would come after that next one. And so it was literally just get up to cruising altitude, turn on autopilot, and walk away from my computer and do something else. But I wanted to do it, so yeah.
Yeah, that does sound like fun. Yeah, I'm not, I don't know, I've always loved aviation, but I've never really gotten into the details. There's definitely a lot of details in this game that I have yet to learn. So, but it's been fun.
And there you go.
And it's on Xbox Game Pass, so I didn't have to buy it.
Yeah, well, my original Xbox One does not have the software or hardware to run it. So
yeah, it's a beefy game, and it streams a ton of data while you play too. I think most of that's the real time weather and things like that. So definitely not a game if you have or not a good game if you have a strict data cap on your internet.
Luckily, my wife works from home, and so we've got a low-end business internet, so something like 100 megabytes down and no bandwidth cap. So
nice.
And it makes gaming kind of fun.
Yeah, it's nice when you don't have to worry about that kind of thing.
Yeah. So, and before anybody calls and says, "Oh, she's still in company resources," we pay for it ourselves. We are not. There's nothing shady going on with us using business software or business internet for personal use.
Yeah, there's no rule against that. Anybody can go out and upgrade to a business line. So.
So. Yeah. I guess we've kind of talked quite a bit about the video games. Any good movies or books that you've been?
Yes. Kind of caught me off guard though. So if you have one, go ahead while I think about what I've watched over the last little bit.
Oh, geez. We kind of talked about it last week, but I got the Discovery Plus app, and I've slowly been going through the homestead rescue that we kind of talked about. The hosts have their own ranch, and during the pandemic, they were building a new house and some new stuff for the kids, and so it's kind of fun to watch them homestead rescue their own homestead. So I've been on that, and then I don't know. On Audible, there's a book called Metropolitan, which is a sci-fi futuristic dystopian novel where they use plasma, which to me it kind of reads as like a mix between the internet and electricity, and use it to create their own means of survival and whatnot. And corporations have charged everybody, so only the rich really have it, but these mages are able to manipulate it into their own means, and that's been an interesting read.
Yeah, that does sound interesting. My Audible time has been a little bit lacking. I'm trying to find I'd like to find a new series that I can get into. So I've been kind of re-listening to some of the old ones. I did pick up, so one of the authors that I follow pretty closely is Jackson Crawford. which he's a nonfiction author. But he has a new one called Two Sagas of Mythical Heroes. So it's the story of he does Old Norse stuff. So this is the story of Hervor and Hadric and Hrolf Kraki and his champions that he has translated and kind of added some footnotes to that I've been reading. And then as far as TV, my wife and I started watching the new Wheel of Time adaptation on Amazon Prime.
Oh, how is that? I haven't watched that one yet.
It's pretty good. There's might be 3 episodes now. They're doing like a weekly, I want to say it's every Friday. And I'll be honest, as much of a reader as I am, that's one series that I have never read. I've tried several times to get into it, but either something came up or just it was hard to get into. So I can't speak as to how it compares to the books, but as a TV show, it's entertaining and watchable.
Okay. I honestly don't think that I've read it either, so if it's entertaining and watchable, that's really all I need.
Yeah, it's an epic fantasy. So, sorcerers, sorceresses. In the Wheel of Time universe, only women are permitted to use the magic system. So, at least from what I've learned in watching the first 2 episodes.
Okay.
And there's mythical creatures and monsters and stuff, but I've enjoyed it so far. And then when we're not watching the Wheel of Time, we are trying to watch the latest season of Yellowstone that started pretty recently.
Oh, I hear great things about that one. I still haven't watched that yet.
It's a good one. I think you would really get into it. So when we watched the first couple of seasons, it was on the Peacock app. And streaming services are kind of crazy as far as like having too many. So we subscribed for a month and just kind of binge watched the whatever seasons were available. And then the most recent one for some reason is on the Paramount app. Anyway, but I think you should check it out. It's a great show. It's all about these ranchers and the conflict that they're having with the Native Americans in the area and trying to, land disputes. And then you've got all of these land developers trying to come in and build like mini malls and ski resorts and stuff. So I like it because that's kind of what I grew up around. So
it is interesting. One of my good friends, actually, he said, you'd like it. It's like The Godfather meets modern day cowboys. I went, okay.
Yeah, that's a pretty accurate description.
I mean, yeah, okay.
Or I've heard some people call it a Western version of Game of Thrones. But
I never got into Game of Thrones, the TV series. I read the first 4 books.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the TV series did such a good job of following them. It was actually boring for me.
Yeah, well, yeah. That's about the time that it diverged and the TV show went one way and the books went and I guess the books haven't caught up to the TV show yet, actually, but
okay, so
because they were wanting to continue the show and George R.R. Martin hadn't finished writing the next book yet, so
you're telling me to start watching the TV show at season 4 because then it diverges.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to spoil anything. I thought the way they ended it was kind of lame because they were working on their own. They didn't have a book to work off of. So, but as far as the show itself goes, it was entertaining.
That's fair. I mean, you can't go wrong with high fantasy. We've already kind of established that both of us are fantasy nerds.
That's accurate.
So, yeah. Well, that ends today's episode. We hope you enjoyed our first ever Potpourri Anything Goes show. You can join us next week as we share important winter survival tips for your cold weather adventures. Do you have a request for a subject that you'd like us to talk about on a future episode? Or is there a particular topic for which you have a passion and you'd love to come on the show as a guest? Either way, send an email to podcast@viewsfromtheworldtree.com or message us through one of our social media accounts, the links to which can be found on our new website, viewsfromtheworldtree.com. We look forward to hearing from you. Also, if you have a moment, we would appreciate if you leave us a rating on iTunes or your favorite podcast app. It makes a huge difference, especially for new podcasts.